Somehow, my daughters fell in love with Formula One. I don't know how or why, but I'm not arguing. They may not know wheel, but does anyone?
Hi, and welcome to We Don't Know Wheel F1. I'm Anne.
I'm Grace.
And I'm Shelly.
And
Producer Shelly.
Producer Shelly. We're two sisters and a friend who fell in love with Formula One, and now you get to listen to us talk about it. And oh my goodness, race week. The Italian Grand Prix did not disappoint.
Oh my gosh. So good.
And our predictions, we got like the top ones. Like you said Lando, Grace said
I said Carlos.
Carlos. He was kind of up there for a bit.
He was up there.
Shelly, did you say Charles?
He led the race.
I said Oscar and Sarah said Charles. Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. We were at the top four. That's pretty good.
Wow. The top four. We should all
get a reward.
But Sarah gets the Stroop. Yeah.
Let's see how many Culver's coupons Dad has.
Wasn't Sarah going to provide it? So she's really just giving herself ice cream.
Yeah. How did she know?
Who needs an excuse to give themselves ice cream?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Shelly, you've been avoiding TikTok.
TikTok has actually been pretty tame, but social media has been wild for Oscar girlies.
Whoa. So, I think I've heard about this.
I couldn't even really watch the post-race stuff because they were just being brutal. Like, in the sense of people were critiquing McLaren, which I think is rightfully so. But I think in some ways painting Oscar in this certain light that maybe he should have been thinking about the team, thinking about supporting Lando. And
no, you're not a racing driver. Like, I know. Come on.
This is an age-old dynamic, right? And it was already all of that on top of Oscar's sting of like second place this race. So I just decided to step away, and I did watch the race a second time just to make sure. I just wanted to see.
You watched a full second time.
Full second time with Sarah. Stop. First time on my own. And I did learn a few more things, but anyways, been avoiding.
Okay. I feel like you now will understand what it's like to be a Carlos girly in a Charles world. Because that is Oscar's role right now.
This is what I said to Sarah. I was just telling her, like, are these like technically second drivers just, is this their path? Is this in the sport where they are the supportive player? And I'm like, I know Oscar is a supportive team player, but I also am seeing this season that he has world champion potential. And that is, it's just hard to see that playing out in the race. And now thinking like, when his contract is up, where is he going to go? Because I would not like to see him in a supportive role, unfortunately. And it's just hard to, see that. So it's interesting you bring up Carlos, Grace.
Well, I do feel like also, I mean, Oscar, and I think Oscar has this less than Carlos, honestly, right now. Like, I think there's a lot of people who are like Oscar is going to be a world champion. And McLaren, I think, is being smart if they say, we need to make sure that Oscar doesn't feel relegated to like second class citizen. And ultimately, McLaren's number one goal and the most important thing for them as a team is to win the Constructors' Championship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Obviously, they want to support Lando too, but like the thing that will bring them money is the Constructors' Championship.
I don't think people who are upset with the way that Lando is driving should be upset with Lando. Sorry, not Lando. People who are upset with the way that Oscar was driving should not be upset with Oscar. He was doing his job as a racing driver. If McLaren wants Lando to have a shot at winning the Drivers' Championship. McLaren needs to be stepping in because McLaren at no point during the race told Oscar that he needs to like let Lando by because Lando is the one who's in the fight for the Drivers' Championship.
But also, like,
none of it, in my opinion, lays on Oscar. It's on McLaren.
yeah. And I thought it was interesting too. I think the commentators during the race made an implication that, oh, papaya rules must mean let Lando pass. But I really assumed that papaya rules meant don't crash into each other. Or like you can race to a certain amount. Like you can race, but don't risk your place. And I thought that's what they did. I don't know. It just felt like fair and square that Oscar did better than Lando. And in the race where they had them swap, like it was a team call that made Oscar like behind Lando. So it's like, yeah, that's a very different situation than the two of them were racing each other.
Yeah.
And Oscar passed Lando.
Yeah.
And fans would be complaining so much if they didn't let them race. Like everyone would be like, this is boring. Why aren't they letting them race? People like it when they let the drivers race.
I agree with that. But I also think if McLaren wants to have any shot of Lando being the Drivers' Champion, they need to be putting all of their eggs in his basket, and they need to be telling Oscar before the race starts, your only job is to back up Lando, not to pass Lando, and to make sure nobody gets past you. If they want Lando to win the Drivers' Championship, that's what they need to be doing, and that's not what they're doing, which if they don't want to do that, that's their choice.
Well, to me, I think I look at the situation and I'm like, ultimately, look, McLaren does the best when they have two of the best drivers on the grid, which is what they have right now. But if they make it really clear that they always prioritize Lando, then why would Oscar want to stay at that team? He's going to go look for a team where he can be prioritized.
That's fair.
And I think as well, like F1 fans like it when Checo was fighting for the championship, people like that. And so like McLaren in the long term, I feel like in a weird way does better by letting them actually duke it out.
Yeah, but like, I mean, if you can imagine a world where Oscar hadn't passed Lando and where Lando had stayed in the lead the whole time,
but
like,
I think the Ferraris would have still potentially won that.
But like, if you imagine a world where they hadn't, like, I think that the Formula One world.
Imagine that all of the results were
Charles?
different.
Imagine
Ferrari doesn't exist. We're in Italy.
Imagine
Carlos.
that Ferrari doesn't try the one stop. Let's go with that. And Lando ends up winning the race, and Max is back in 6th. That swing of points and the way that it brings the Drivers' Championship so much closer is, I think, in the grand scheme of like interest and popularity in Formula One, pretty significant, because that's
McLaren doesn't care about interest in Formula One. McLaren cares about interest in McLaren.
Well, I also think that if that had happened, people would see that there's a legitimate chance of Lando winning the Drivers' Championship, and anybody who doesn't want Max to win another championship would be like, oh, we have an actual legitimate shot and challenger here. And that would boost McLaren's stock.
I struggle with that take. I just don't think that Lando is like, he is the closest right now. That's true. And McLaren certainly have a very good car. But it's like when you are talking about like if Lando won every single race from this point on and Max got second and Lando gets the fastest lap, when you have to go that far in the math for Lando to win it,
that's
it's not
the thing.
that close.
If Lando had won and Max had gotten like 6th, that swing of points
Max would have gotten 6 if the
different.
Ferraris would have also pitted. I'm just saying.
I think he was not gaining
you're
time
as
on
bad
Lewis.
as the commentators right now being like, they're in net first place. And you're like, who knows what's going to happen by the end of this?
Regardless of if the Ferraris did a second pit
Maybe
stop, Max was behind them.
Next race,
he
Max
wasn't going anywhere
DNFs.
past 6. He wasn't even getting close to Lewis in 5th.
I just think it would be, I think that there are arguments to be made that Oscar may be an even better challenger for the world championship in the future. Not
in
in
future
this
years.
season, but in future years. So there's a good reason why McLaren should be showing him like, you can challenge for the world championship with us. We will not exclusively prioritize Lando. And I would have said, until seeing like the way things have been with Oscar, that that's the way it was, because Lando has always been the il predestino of McLaren. So it's like, to me, I think it makes sense that McLaren is like, no, we really need to show both of these drivers that they're worth, like, they're both important to us and they can both be world champion.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I
like I
agree
said,
with
I
that.
just don't think that Lando is like close enough to that win that it's reasonable for McLaren to be like, okay, Oscar, you're out. Now you're just help.
See,
This is like when people were
in
doing
my
this with
opinion-
Charles and Carlos, and it was like Charles was never that close to winning the world championship. And if they would have done that to the two of them, it would have like made a worse relationship between them and made them less likely to want to work together.
Are you talking about 2022?
Yes.
See, okay, I don't think I agree with you on either count, because Charles
The second half of
was
2022, Ferrari, Charles could not have won.
But okay, if Charles wins Silverstone and they also like several other big, and if he won
I mean,
Monaco,
ultimately, Ferrari.
he is very much in that drivers' championship fight. He was leading up until was 40
the Ferrari
points ahead
fell
in
off
Miami.
the development track.
No, Ferrari started making stupid mistakes and then they fell off the development track. So I think it could have
But
been
they
a lot
had
closer.
2 issues.
Yes, if you fix
It
one
could
of
have
those
been
issues,
closer,
it's a
but
lot
he wouldn't
closer.
have won.
And I also think that
I also
with
think there
the-
was no way that Carlos could have actually given Charles the win. That's not possible in the safety car at Silverstone. Okay, let's get back to Monza for a minute and let's just say,
How is this so fresh in your head? Oh my gosh. Silverstone
Let's get back to
2022.
Monza for a second and just Carlos's first win. It's always fresh in my mind. I want to go back to Monza though. I wonder if they had told Carlos, like, if whichever one's in front, you guys try to create the biggest gap that you can safely keep between the two of you, because that is what saved Charles to allow him to win that race, that they had like almost a 12-second gap between the two of them. And then obviously Carlos tries to hold off the McLarens as long as he can, but then they have so much distance to make up.
I'm not sure I trust that Ferrari actually thought ahead that much.
I don't know. I think like that's not that unusual that a team would be like, okay, you guys are looking out for each other.
Yeah.
Whichever one's in front, you create the biggest gap you can. We're going for a one stop with both of you. Like I think they have a bunch of different strategy ideas, but I think that strategy makes a lot of sense because they knew, okay, if we go for a one stop, your tires are going to be falling off at the end. But if we can separate the two of you enough, one of you can hold up people as much as you can, and the other one just has to not get passed at the last second. That's essentially what they did. I think that's actually some of the best Ferrari strategy they've ever done.
Honestly, I think one of you guys should be watching the dashboard cams while watching the race, because I did personally follow Oscar. So it's been like an interesting, like, you're watching the race, but you're also watching some of the communication, because I have been noticing, obviously there's a lot of spotlight right now on McLaren, and I don't know what else is happening on the grid for the other teams because they can't show everything, but it would be interesting to watch back and maybe see. We did see some of Charles' frustration, which makes me feel like maybe they didn't have their stuff together. So I don't know, Grace, maybe you're giving them a lot of kudos
when Charles was getting so frustrated, it was because they were giving him like, what do they call that? Like things to put in the car. And he was like, will manage the car now.
But when he had come in for his tires, he was pissed that he didn't get that undercut.
The undercut. I mean, that was a good.
I mean, things happened, and I did see how I was so annoyed with the tires, and I needed Ruth to be there
I
She was
know,
not
and she was in
there.
Las Vegas having fun.
She wasn't there, and I needed her to talk about what was going on with these McLaren tires. And I think they had
Yeah.
just pushed too hard
I
early
do
on,
think
but they needed to. So
I think the Ferrari's tire wear is actually some of the best on the grid right now.
Mhm.
And that's the thing that Ferrari has going for it. And Ferrari needs to be more confident about going for one-stop strategies because they're so used to previous seasons where their tire was.
I agree.
So I have this question, and I need Ruth or one of you guys to answer, maybe Anne, because in
Not
Oscars,
Grace.
I don't know if you know tire stuff. Go ahead, Grace. Maybe
Stop.
in Oscars post interview before the podium, he had mentioned how he saw his left tire degrading and
Mhm.
how he went to go pit in for that, but he said that they eventually came back or something.
Mhm.
And to me, it wasn't clear on whether or not he meant if he were to have stayed out there with the hard tires that it would have been fine,
Mhm.
or okay, that's
that's
what he meant.
Yeah. So
that's what-
tires can
That
sometimes go
hurts.
through what is usually referred to as graining, where they then like don't work pretty well for a while,
Well,
but
work
then they
against
can
you.
eventually
No,
start to
wait.
get better sometimes.
Graining means that the tires are like they're losing rubber and picking up these little chunks of rubber, and they're not as good at fully like connecting with the surface of the track. They look grained. They have grains of rubber on them.
Yes,
I'm just saying, I believe that's the definition of
that's what
graining.
happened. Okay.
Well,
But when they
Because
see that, they're saying like, oh, this graining is a sign that these tires are getting
are going
worn.
bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which sometimes tires can go through different phases where the graining gets worse and then the tire can get better for a while. And I don't remember
Or
if Oscar
tire
was saying
can-
that might have been possible.
The tire
Or it
can
can just go
fall
bad.
off completely. And
Yeah.
that's what DC and Julian were talking about, where they were like, but they can just fall off a cliff here.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you don't know when that point is. And it can be like, even for the driver, it can happen in the middle of a lap and you can be
Mhm.
like, oh, and now your lap times are like
Going
3
down
seconds
drastically.
slow,
Yeah.
like 3 seconds faster. And
Mhm.
because it's like when they're doing like rain tires versus slicks, but
Mhm.
it's like your tire is so gone.
Mhm.
And then you have to wait till you get back to change your tire. So they're like, that was the line that Ferrari was riding, was like,
Mhm.
yes, they're a little slower right now, but at any minute, those tires could, one, completely fall off, but two, they could actually just like pop.
Mhm.
And you could be driving in with a single, like you could be driving in with 3 tires
Yeah. Yeah.
or no tires.
Which Baku is kind of used to be notorious for that happening near the
Ooh.
end of the race, which is why there were several just like chaos races with complete surprise winners at Baku. That seems to not have happened as much in the last few years.
And that's what
but it
DC was
used
kind
to
of
be
saying, where he
a
was like,
big issue.
tires don't seem to fall off that cliff the same way they did
No.
back in like, was it 2017 maybe?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, 2021 Checo won Baku because Max had a tire explode. I think Lewis lost a win in Baku one year because he had a tire explode.
Yeah.
Nice. Wow.
And that was probably like 2019 or 2020.
That's
But,
crazy. Yeah, because as I was watching Oscar's dash cam, I saw the conversation occurring with his engineer, and they had really pushed for him, like, are you sure you can't go anymore? And this is where I think the experience comes in, where like for Oscar, I know that's still something developing, obviously, and you get that after driving more and more, but that one hurt at the end, knowing how everything kind of played out. And I personally wasn't seeing his time go down, and so I didn't know either like what he should be doing. I just needed Ruth to be there to say this is his options, and I don't know.
Well, and I think it's hard because like as the driver, you know how it feels in the car. And I think that's like kind of comes back to that idea when Carlos was like, I don't think these guys will be able to go for a one stop. Maybe all he's
Mm.
saying is like my feel of the tire is that it doesn't have as much life as I wanted it to have. But he's using that and projecting like, okay, I want to stay out longer. And Oscar, I think in the same vein is thinking like this tire can't last that much longer. And I know that Charles has an even older tire than mine, so he probably needs to pit too. And I'll pit and he'll pit. But he
Mhm.
doesn't know that Ferrari's in the background having this discussion of like, I think we can do this as a one stop.
Yeah, so this one definitely hurt. And as an Oscar girly, where I just
He
have
literally got
empathy-
second.
He got second, but it was just painful to see this. I honestly felt like he was going to get first today and he had something to lose, like he said.
Mhm.
And then now the onslaught of all this
I thought he did a
Oscar
great
hate.
start. I thought he
He
did a
did
great
great.
start.
His
was
He
move
was
on Lando was
racing.
epic.
Why am I tuning in if they're not going to race?
I know. All I'm saying, and I sent this to Sarah too, is like, if they're gonna make him be a villain, he's a villain. And I want him to own that. Like, and maybe this race, he just had to show like I might be a second driver, but you've seen what I can do, and I'm not like
Yeah.
I'm not
As
staying in
Fernanda
that spot.
says,
Well,
I'm on
and
the dark side.
in my mind, he's such a young driver that it's like he's not a villain driver. He's literally just saying like, look at me, I'm just as competitive.
Yeah.
And that's what his job
100%.
is.
Mhm.
Well, and I was saying to Sarah, I watched the 2019 Monza race where Charles first won, and it was actually so crazy the stuff that happened. Like there's Seb crashing out, and Lance like crashing out, not crashing, but basically spinning out and then coming back into the race really unsafely, and other things happening. And just thinking about that era of drivers, and some of them were kind of bad boys slash villains, you would say, like, and had their moments in that time period. And I don't really see that as a parent in this season, at least, of like
I thought you said
like
I don't see that as a parent.
no,
A parent in
a
this
parent,
season.
no. I don't see that in this season. And that's where even Max, I'm like, I wouldn't even paint him out as
Yeah.
a villain. Like he's
Oh.
not. So I'm saying if there's people are going to villainize someone, and it's Oscar, and I think it is, I don't know, I especially in the McLaren camp, they're going to keep pushing this out, and I think Oscar will continue maybe to fall into that role. And I'm just saying maybe he should lead into that and just screw everyone and drive fast. And there's a part of me that's like,
But also
screw
like
Lando.
that's literally what you have to do to be a world champion. If we're getting
Yeah.
down to the brass tacks of it, it's like everyone loves Seb. But when Seb was winning world championships at Red Bull, everyone hated Seb because he was like, forget all of you. The only goal is for me to win. And I don't care about my teammate, and I don't care about anyone else. And I'm not listening to team orders, and I'll do whatever I feel like to win. And that's
Delta
that's
21.
like, yeah. And that was like Lewis and Nico. And that was Max and Lewis. Like, that's literally what it takes to be a world champion, which is why I personally never cheer for anyone who's trying to be a world champion. No.
I didn't know what I was doing. It was so crazy. Now I'm realizing all these different things. And I was like, the first half of the season felt just fun. And now we're getting serious to these points. And now what, Oscar's going to have to go to second place, when in my personal opinion, I feel like
I don't think
he's
he
doing
is.
better than Lando.
Yeah,
I mean,
McLaren has not
the-
indicated that that's the plan.
The way McLaren is acting, they are not. Does not seem at the moment that they are going to
I've
tell
heard
Oscar
different
he needs to be in a
things.
supportive role.
I've heard different things, and I feel like they may be now pushing team orders now. And
If they
that
didn't
makes
in the
me
last
upset.
race, I can't imagine them doing that moving forward.
I think they're getting
oh,
pressure. I think they're getting pressure from the
Yeah.
media and from that side to be
Yeah.
like, oh, people think we're dumb. We need to show them we're not
But,
dumb.
like,
We have a plan.
I mean, people said the same thing about Ferrari for all of 2022, and they never
Mhm.
really
Got
moved
it
that
together.
direction either.
Mhm. They also
Who knows?
fired Mattia after the season.
Yeah, they did.
Bye, Zach.
I
I have
I
beef
don't think
with
Zach
Zach.
will ever go, right? Because he's the CEO. He's not even a team
I just
principal.
need the board to step in.
Stop.
Anyways, yeah, so that's my take. It was a very good race weekend.
Okay,
Qualifying was so good.
yeah. Speaking
Mhm.
of weird team vibes, who saw the interview where someone was asking Lewis about Kimi Antonelli, and he was like, they need a better driver. So I'm glad.
I saw a clip of what I think was Lewis after the race where he was saying that like he himself, Lewis, had not been good enough
Yes.
during the race. And then he said, maybe Kimmy will be better next year.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that's the
I
one that I
felt
saw.
like, okay, I think so, maybe, I don't know. The context I was seeing it was people being like, I feel like they were almost implying like, oh, poor Lewis. But I was like, I think he's making a dig at Mercedes. I think he's being like, you think a 17-year-old will be better? Maybe it will.
18 for the record now.
Oh, sorry. 18. You think an 18-year-old will be better? Yeah, probably,
Agreed.
right? Like I was like, that was dirty. I liked it. I was like, get in there, Lewis.
I will
You need
also
to get in there and fight.
I somehow keep like missing the driver announcements, and like I didn't see that Kimi Antonelli had been confirmed till it was like 14 hours after the fact it had come out.
Okay.
I don't know how this keeps happening.
Oh, how about Alex Albon's new teammate? How do you say his name? Cappellini.
Franco
Colapinto.
Colapinto.
I'm not
Colapinto.
gonna say it with an accent. I don't know how to do that.
He's
I think that's what you're
Italian,
trying to
right?
do.
No,
Don't,
he's
Grace.
Argentinian.
Is he
Yeah.
Argentinian?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Is Antonelli is Italian?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Getting there. He's Argentinian. Oh my gosh. Did you see the videos being like, he's the next Seb on the grid? I was literally loving.
I did not see those.
I don't know much about him, so that's an interesting comparison
Just
that they're
because he's
doing.
kind of like flirty in his interviews.
Oh, yeah, you did send
Oh,
that.
I saw one. Yeah.
I've just been seeing the Art and Senna lookalike between them, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
actually kind of crazy.
Mm.
But I mean, I guess I am sad about Logan. I just wanted him to finish the season. I needed some closure, and they did not give us that. So
I would be really curious to hear more of the like behind the scenes discussion before this move was made, because it's hard to see the big advantage that this is giving Williams moving forward, and they know that they have Carlos coming in next year, and it seems like this decision was made before Logan's big crash that cost him all that money, and like
I've seen more stuff about this. And what I have heard about why they wanted to bring him up is because James Vowles really, really wants Williams junior driver program to be competitive. Like they want them to be like, you want to come drive for the Williams junior team because we will literally call you up and you will drive F1, and nobody else is doing that right now. I mean, I guess actually that's not true anymore, but so that was the decision, was to say like, if we prioritize our junior team in the future, we'll get better and better drivers into our junior team, and we'll continue to have good drivers in our F1 team through that. I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
I thought he did really well.
Yeah. No, he did
I think
really
the
well.
bigger discussion is like, it was known that Logan was not going to. It's not like Logan was like, they knew what Logan was and what he was bringing to the table. So I think it's worthwhile to like see another driver and see what they can do in that car. Don't
But I
tell
mean,
the
what is
Logan girlies I said that. They're so brutal. They were so mad. I was like, and I
and
also,
they
I
seem to have a
loved,
particular hatred of James Vowels now.
I loved all the memes about how James Vowels went to the Helmut Marko School of Team Principals.
Helmut Marko's not even a team principal.
They don't know what they're doing.
I still like that though. And I'm like, I mean, ultimately, like, what is the big risk there except the car being destroyed, which Logan literally destroyed the car. So, like,
Yeah, if you guys
Yeah.
can recall the last pod, I kind of called it, and I didn't think it was happening so soon, but we said bye to him on the last pod and he was gone the next day. So sorry, Logan girlies.
sorry, Logan.
Shelley, the
I will
angel
say,
of death.
I feel like the Logan girlies are unhinged. They're obsessed with him, Logan. They were so mad at James Vowels. I'm gonna get hate mail for this. And then I actually saw a few that were like, actually, Colapano? Is that how you say it?
Colapinto.
Colapinto. Did surprisingly well.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. This race had everything.
It did.
Danny Ricciardo could have been in the points.
Close, but
Yeah,
not
he
close
was
enough.
close. But well, he also had
He had
15 seconds
second.
worth of penalties.
Yeah, that one
That
hurt.
sucks.
That one
Wait,
hurt.
did you guys see when they did the replay of his pit stop?
Yes, the poor guy who was like, oh,
I
shoot.
know. I feel
I was
so
like,
awful.
oh no.
That easily would have been
hard
me.
to watch.
If I was on the team, that could have been me. So I'm just gonna give them grace. But it's
no, I only have compassion for that poor guy. Like,
Yeah.
what
Oh
a
my
like, without thinking, doing something and just the instant regret. Like, oh, I feel awful for him.
yeah.
And then Yuki DNF'd like 2 laps in
Mm-hmm.
because of contact with Magnussen.
Nico.
Someone.
It was Nico.
Nico.
It was
Haas.
Nico.
Yeah.
And then
K-Mag not racing.
race ban.
Is it Singapore next?
Baku.
Oh, Baku. Thank you. Sorry.
I was like, what?
No.
If you get a race ban, does that mean Haas has 1 car in the race?
No, they can have someone else drive the car because it's
Ollie.
about it's about the driver.
Okay, so who's going to drive for Haas?
Ollie probably. I mean, he's driving from next year. Why wouldn't they have him drive?
I don't know. I'm just asking a question.
They're gonna call Logan, and he's American, of course. It all makes sense.
Imagine.
No, I think there's rumors that Ollie Behrman will be stepping in, which good for him. It's honestly
Yeah.
been interesting. The one thing that Sarah noted, again, Sarah and I talked about this since 2019 and watching the Monza race then and seeing the chaos. She had mentioned, maybe it was because of kind of young drivers at that point and the season not really having too much of chaos because there's a lot of the same old people. And so now with like even Kimi's, race this weekend or intro this weekend, that was very interesting. So I'm excited to see Ollie there. I'm glad Franco's doing well. That's fine.
I think that's actually a really good point because, controversial, but I feel like there is an aspect where like teams have been a little more motivated to keep their drivers rather than being like time for the next person because there's such a huge social media following and like with Netflix, like people like know Kevin Magnussen and they actually kind of like love his salty self and like so then there's a bigger like the teams feel like, oh, we got to keep these drivers because people love them rather than just being like, okay, you didn't perform the way I wanted, on to the next one. Or you're not giving me the money I want, on to the next one. There's a way bigger pressure to keep the same drivers. So you're right. Like the races have not been very wild this year. It's been so mellow.
Yeah. I do think that because
as far as like DNFings and like insane crashes and whatever. Good
I think
passing.
because there is so many drivers out of contract at the end of the season, teams I feel like feel a little bit more freedom to sign whoever they want because they're just like one tiny piece in this giant puzzle. And if certain drivers that people love don't end up getting seats or good seats, they're like one specific team is not going to face as much like intense, I don't know if criticism is the right word
Yeah.
for it, but just like
Scrutiny.
focus. Scrutiny. That's a great word. And so I mean we
And this
have
is all thanks to Lewis Hamilton.
but we have confirmed right now 3 new drivers to Formula One joining next year of Kimi, Jack Doohan, and
Ollie.
Ollie Bierman, and also probably Liam Lawson, hopefully Liam Lawson.
Yes.
Which means that there are 4 current Formula One drivers who are not going to have a seat next year. But it like because so much is shuffling around, I think there's going to be less intense focus on one specific team, and so teams feel more free to make those decisions, and it's going to make next year very fun and very exciting.
I agree. I'm like really excited for next season.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also like the second half of this season has been insane in terms of like who's doing well, who's winning, and when next season starts, most likely we're going to be in a similar position of like different cars are going to be the fastest just depending on the weekend. But without Red Bull having the lead they built up at the beginning of this season. And so it's literally going to be anyone's game and it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. Oh, so anyone have thoughts about Kimi? I know that's been around Monza.
Or Kimi Antonelli?
Right?
They were both
Kimi
there.
He was there, but what is there to say about him? He was talking with Mattia, which was kind of funny and
Yes.
whatever. So
it was weird seeing Mattia in the bright orange Sauber or by green.
I was having a moment looking at the Drivers' Championship where I was like, even though Williams is doing very bad, I can understand why Carlos was like, not Audi. Because I feel like at least Williams has been like, we are trying to improve the car. Whereas I feel like Sauber has literally been like,
well, and also,
did you want us to do something about this?
Andreas Seidel left as well as several other
lot of turnover.
Of the Audi
Something bad is happening over there.
And it's gotta be really bad. Well, and also I'm like Andreas Seidel is gonna be giving Carlos the like inside scoop of what's going on because they work together.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
That's good. Kimi Antonelli, thoughts? Is he
I'm
worth
excited.
the hype?
My favorite was when they asked George how he felt about being the older driver. And he was like, I'm 27.
I'm not old.
My favorite moment was seeing George in the garage before Kimi crashed and then seeing him after. And I was like, that man, he's hurting this. He can't hide it very well. Yeah.
Well, I think he also
George hides nothing. George is an open book.
Well, I think George had also just recently put in his like last new engine.
Yes.
Without a penalty. And so I'm sure there's a big part of his head going, oh crap, has this kid just destroyed my engine and I'm not gonna have to take a grid penalty?
Or even get a free practice session.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. He barely.
Yeah. Did you guys see, Shelly, you might have seen Chris Medland put something of like, oh, it was okay. You say your point. I'm gonna find the tweet from Chris Medland because it was really funny.
Okay. I was skeptical about Kimi. I mean, I try to watch some of the F2 stuff, but and heard his rumblings of like, I forget which race it was, but him driving in the rain and having dominance in one of his F2 races, which
Are you obsessed with that idea that people are like, the people who can dominate in the rain are the best drivers? And then they say that about literally everyone. They're always
I
like, he
know.
was so dominant in the rain.
I do
it
think
was
it is
just
legitimately a good test of who the best driver is because
It's
it's
not
either
that
best machinery or
impressive.
but it gets applied
But they
way
say
too
it about
often. Like they talk about
literally everyone.
I know they talk about Stroll
Stroll.
being good in the rain.
Your boy Oscar was coming for Stroll.
But
yeah.
Grace, Carlos is the best in the rain, right?
He's the best in the rain. Because he trained in Britain.
Oh my gosh, they all did.
Yeah. That's why Lewis is so good. He's the best in the rain. That's why Max is so good. Because he's Dutch. He's the best in the rain.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe because of Toto and his like outlandish things he's had to say about Kimi, where I feel like him and James, just very interesting verbiage around these young drivers. I was just interested to see what he could bring, and it was, yeah, I think it was unfortunate that he crashed, but
yeah,
I found the tweet, which is very relevant. So Chris Midland first tweeted, "Start the hype train. Antonelli's at the top of the times after its first time lap on soft tires." Less than 10 minutes later, he tweeted, "Stop the hype train. Antonelli has crashed a parabolica."
it was so, yeah.
The highs and the lows.
Seriously. And I guess that it wasn't pretty impressive him being at the top for a while, but it'll be a good season next season after this one is done.
It's still unhinged to me that Mercedes was like, let's take a baby driver. I just think it's so like, what has happened to Toto Wolff where now he's obsessed with like, I missed Max Verstappen. And it's like, where is your brain, dude? If you would have picked up Max Verstappen, you would have had Max and you would have had Lewis at the same time. And they were literally, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
Max and Lewis on the same team is a recipe for disaster.
It would never have worked. I just don't understand how you can look back at a time when you were extremely dominant in the sport and be like, I wish I would have picked up this other guy. It just doesn't make sense to me. Make it make sense. It's just crazy. If you were like McLaren and you were like, gosh, we missed out on Max, that makes more sense to me. But you were the most dominant team. And you're like, what could have been? And it's like, you were literally winning.
Okay, I have a question that I want to hear your guys' thoughts on. Which
I've lost my respect for him.
Anyways, here's my question. Out of the most likely 4 rookies to join Formula One next year, which one do you think is going to end up with the most impressive track record in comparison to their teammate? Antonelli, Doohan, Bierman, or Liam Lawson?
Say that again, Grace. Liam.
I forgot about Liam. Liam does not have a confirmed seat. So if Liam's not on the grid, Doohan.
Really? Jack Doohan?
I fear for Gasly.
Really?
I just have a good feeling about him.
Choice.
I have a good personal feeling. I like his energy.
I think if Liam Lawson is on the grid, I think it's gonna be Liam because he has
I agree.
So much more experience, and like his experience was very impressive.
Yeah.
And I think my prediction is that Kimi Antonelli is gonna come in and he's gonna be fast, but he's gonna be kind of like Max in the early years of like doing some crazy unexpected things where he just needs to like learn and mature some.
So I have a thing. You guys are saying Liam, but where's he going?
Okay, that's what I was literally going to say. Liam's going to Red Bull.
I think Checo's out, and I think Liam or Danny or Yuki. I don't honestly know between the three of them.
You're saying Liam over Max. You're thinking
compared to his teammate.
Compared to
he's winning.
Just in comparison.
But you mean like better, comparing better than
like comparing better than Checo.
Oh, okay. His replacement. I don't know.
No, I thought we were compared to the other, what would you call that? A freshman driver? What do they call them?
Rookie.
No, they have a name, a rookie. Compared to the other rookies, right?
Yeah.
And how they are doing compared to their teammates.
So it's gonna be like, how is
That's why I was-
Antonelli compared to Russell versus Doohan compared to Gasly?
Yes.
I think if Liam is at Red Bull, that changes the calculus.
That's what I'm saying. I was just like, what do you mean, Liam? Anyways, I'm pretty impressed with Kimi. And I think he's
She's
kind of a
going
wild
full
card.
Kimmy. Stop.
I feel bad for
Interesting.
George. The way Toto was talking about Max, and George is gonna be out. I don't know
I
where he's
know.
going. Back to Williams? Seriously.
Yeah. Williams, okay. George never knew that he was the lifetime second driver. He always was like in this, you can tell that he was like, I'm coming in and Lewis will be there and he's going to elevate me to be the winning driver. He's going to lift me up
his
to the world
position.
championship. And then he got there and was like, what?
Yeah.
And then Toto was like, actually, we have someone younger and better. And you're just kind of a seat filler.
I've gotten a soft spot for George, especially with his like tragic losses in terms of like his races, and I'm sad about it. I'm sad about the way Toto's treating George like a rag doll.
Yes.
So
He is. But again, I'm like, what is going on in Toto's head?
Yeah.
I see Susie and I'm like, okay, maybe we're not getting the full picture because I trust Susie, so Toto must be okay. I don't
be
know.
that bad. Stop.
I'm
think
like,
it's
he
like-
must be a good husband, a good father. And
I think there's a difference
don't know.
between being a good husband and father and being a good
And-
team principal.
I think
maybe
he's-
no. Yeah.
I feel like he's going through some like weird emotional turmoil. I won't get too deep into this, but I do think there's something,
Life crisis.
yeah, there's some sort of thing going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, especially it is like just sad when you think about like how close Toto and Hamilton were. And that fallout is just like, oh.
You're putting on your therapist hat. I think there's something there. Trauma and now.
Okay. Think about it like when you're getting out of a relationship with someone, like a long-term relationship, and you're like, oh, that just never, like even though maybe you had good years, you're like, that just was never going to work out. I don't know why I thought it was going to. And then you're idealizing your ex from even before them, where you're like, that's what I should have really been working on. Not this thing. Why did I spend
Not this
6
guy.
years with this guy?
Not this guy. Not
That's what it's giving
Lewis.
though.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're the friend who's just like, I think you kind of broke up with the wrong guy.
We need a sports
Lewis said-
psychologist.
Lewis said, I want to get married. And Toto said, I never wanted to get married.
It was never real. We were never
This has
a real
always
thing.
just been for
really
fun.
Good analogy.
I'm not ready for a serious
We're just
commitment.
friends, acquaintances, mutuals. That's what Toto was saying. God. Now I need Ruth full time, and I need a sports psychologist to rise up and be a main person there. And honestly, we need that. I don't know any
actually feel
big
like
names.
That would be really fun. I like that concept of having like one of the personal, the like driver psychologist. who's
Could you
like-
just
Driver's
see
coach.
it?
Yeah.
Look, Oscar just passed Lando. I know Lando must be doubting himself every second now. And
Get Michael Italiano on there.
yes. Oh,
That would be a real one. I feel like, speaking of Lando, I just feel like he's so hard on himself. That's here's my real hot take, and I feel this about like Carlos and Charles, Lando and Oscar, Lando and Max. It's like the fans get more emotionally invested in the conflict than the people who are actually in the conflict. And that's the part that I'm like, we don't need to be mean to each other. We can like joke around and we can talk about it. But if Max and Lando can be friends, if Oscar and Lando can be friendly to each other, we can all be friendly to each other. This is a little far for me.
As my high schoolers would say, it's not that deep.
Yeah, there was a tweet that said divorce is over, and they included a photo of Oscar and Lando at their private jets going home. And I said, yeah, it's not that deep. And also, the parasocial situation is just so hardcore. And I don't know, because this is kind of my first year really watching the races live time. I don't know if it's always been like this or if we're feeling the ramping of this sport going in that direction.
I'll say this. I think that there's a transition. I'm going to make some statements and then you can get mad at me. I think there's a transition as like women become a bigger part of the sport and we're much more invested in the friendships in the sport, right? Like we love the Carlando, we love the C squared and the Oslando or whatever they're calling it. But we love that aspect, or I think a lot of women enjoy that aspect, and newer fans. I won't genderize it. So then when we see that like disconnect, we're like, how could they be fighting? They're fighting. Like, how could they do? But the boys, they were doing the exact same thing with Hamilton and Max. They were like, you talk to people about Hamilton and Max, they're totally unhinged. It's like, there's nothing's home.
Yes. But
I think it's just a different version of the same thing.
Yeah. It's a different version of like the same intensity.
And the same parasocialness where they were like, I'm a Max fan. And here's where I personally hate Lewis Hamilton. And you're like, even Max doesn't personally hate Lewis Hamilton. That is so unhinged. Why do you need to do that? They are cordial and friendly. That is like, what are you doing? Why do you have a personal vendetta against someone you don't even know?
I will say, I admitted that I needed to touch grass after yesterday's race. I was feeling the hurt of the sting of Oscar's second place too strongly, and I knew I needed to touch grass. And I'm glad that I did. And I admit that I'm healthy, I'm self-aware. And
I'm proud of you for recognizing that, Shelley.
Yes. And I will say, I know I have my Oscar bias. So of course there's a part of me that's like, Oscar, don't even care about McLaren. Just leave Lando out there. Just do your thing because you're number one. But that's also not the spirit that they're trying to bring. So I am half in that group, half out of that group. That's what I'm going to claim here. In case anybody comes for me and saying I'm not biased. I know I'm not, and I'm aware.
And I think it's one thing to be like, I have a favorite driver.
Yeah,
and
we all have
to
favorites.
be like,
we're allowed to have biases.
If there's no one rooting for Oscar, I'm dead. You know, like that's totally reasonable. I think it gets into the unreasonable where you're like, I personally dislike this person because of this and this reason. And it's like,
or I think this person is a horrible human being because I've seen them do this and this and this.
Which I'm not saying that people shouldn't have social responsibility and whatnot.
No. But we also, it's not fair as outsiders who are seeing one aspect of who they are to fully judge them as a human being.
Well, and if they can all be collegiate and friendly, except for Max and Esteban, we can all be collegiate and friendly.
I think my only personal beef is with Zach Brown, and that's it.
I think people need to be getting mad at teams way more than they should be getting mad at drivers. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's been crazy seeing how people are spinning things. And I was reminded that, oh, these tweets are probably being written by 14-year-olds because guess what? Their brains are not developed.
Teenagers on a daily basis. They're not always logical.
They need to touch grass.
Touch grass. So
this was a good race, though.
I
was a fan. Okay, last thing. As much as there's like such a part of me that's like, oh my gosh, it would be so fun to go to Monza. Like the you know, you get to be a Ferrari fan and like
the singing of the national anthem all together gets me every time. Incredible.
But then I'm also like, no, I could never. I feel like I feel everything closing in on me when I even watch the crowd on the
Claustrophobic.
track. Yeah, I'm like, no,
It-
no, thank you.
it
I'll go to a
also
different
sounds-
race.
Also sounds like one of the races that is absolute chaos to get
Chaos.
to. And also, it's a race that a few years ago, there were horror stories
Yeah.
of people waiting hours and hours to use a bathroom and to get food.
I think
Literal, like 4-hour
if we're
waits.
going, okay, Shelly, what's your next race you want to go to?
So I still want to go to Suzuka. That's a pretty high up one for me.
If you go to Suzuka, you have to let me come with you.
Yes, you're invited.
Okay,
I was
thank
actually
you.
looking at tickets and still they're very high. So but
To Japan or to Suzuka?
to the race for
Wait, how are you looking at
Suzuka.
them? Okay.
So I get confused by all the tickets, but they're high. Let's say that.
Okay.
My second one, I actually do think I'd like to go to Silverstone. It just seems iconic, and it seems like they love the fans there.
Are you
they
gonna
have a
camp
ton
in the
of
mud?
stuff. Maybe I might not be able to afford anything else if I,
I'll go camp in the mud
happen.
with you, Shelly.
Yeah,
I'm ready
seriously.
for you to work in like F1 social media.
Yes.
When will that be pending?
Get us paddock passes.
Anne, you can't be asking her for favors before she even has the job.
My intentions are pure, not for the passes.
No,
Yeah,
it's to meet and fall in love with one of the drivers.
exactly, yes. Yeah, I think those ones are my top ones, and I feel like realistic, hopefully.
Mm.
Yeah. What about you, Anne? Next races.
If the schedule stays similar to what it is, usually it's European races during the summer, and I think it'd be really fun to do a trip and go to both Spa and Zandvoort
Yeah.
and
I'm
have
in.
like 2 to 3
Mhm.
weeks in Europe traveling around and
Mom
going to
and
those two
Dad said they would go to
Oh.
Zandvoort. So if
Really?
yeah. Mom was like, oh,
Ooh,
we'd
I'm
be
gonna
into
keep
that.
that in mind.
I think you'd have to do it really on the cheap for them. They're on a budget.
Yeah.
But I think we could do it. It sounds so fun. I love the idea of riding your bike to the racetrack.
Right?
Yeah.
Rent an electric bike or scooter. It'd be so fun.
Yeah.
Mhm. What about you, Grace?
Grace?
I'm desperate to go to Singapore.
Mm,
I'm
You
like,
are.
that'd be crazy.
Yeah. I'm like, I need a friend who has enough money to go to Singapore with me.
It's crazy. Yeah. Have
I
you
need a
started
rich
looking at stuff?
husband.
Yeah.
No, because I keep putting it off because I'm like, I really I think I could afford to go to Singapore actually, which is very unhinged, but I don't want to go alone. I want to go with someone, which maybe I should just go alone. It would be fun. But I'm down for Zandvoort next year or Spain or like honestly anywhere, but not Italy. I think it's too much for me.
I
Mhm.
think I would consider Imola, but not Monza. It's just, yeah, I agree. That's too much. We go to Zandvoort, Grace, so you have
We
to
need to
be
figure out our race for next
prepared
year though, ladies.
for the Orange Army.
I know.
Mm.
I think the Orange Army would accept like a Williams fan.
Yes.
Oh gosh. Well, yes, congrats to Charles. We didn't really talk too much about him, but he's there and he won and we're happy for him. So Ooh.
Yay, Charles.
Yes.
Even I was excited for him.
Very excited. Also, how insane is it that he won Monaco and Monza?
Yeah.
Like those are the 2 races he's won
He's
so far this year.
truly Fred's favorite. Okay, don't get mad at me for this, but there's certainly like, I think sometimes when when Ferrari, I think that some of the teams do prioritize certain tracks when they know their car overall will not be totally competitive. And so they're like, okay, but we are desperate to, and they will prioritize making sure the car will do well at certain tracks.
Like Red Bull before 21.
Red Bull
where
at
they
Monaco.
knew our engine can struggle bus, but if we make the best chassis, we can win every year in Monaco.
Yes. And I
Yeah,
think Ferrari
totally.
does try to do that with Monza.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Hot take.
yeah. Okay.
Well, thanks
Okay.
for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you in a week after Baku.
Yay.
Woo!
Like, comment, subscribe.
Bye.
Bye.